Hey everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Retrospective video. As we continue to follow Star Wars novels in their original release order, we now hit 1979, 1 year before The Empire Strikes Back would come to blow us all away. This also meant that, just like Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the author of this next series of books, Brian Daley, only had the events of A New Hope to go by when looking for inspiration. The books that followed would come to be known as the Han Solo Adventures. This video will focus on the first book of the trilogy, Han Solo at Star's End. At Star's End takes place years before the events of A New Hope, which was really just called Star Wars at the time. Han and Chewie are trying to finish up business with a guy named Pluvo 2-for-1. That's really his name. While they're talking, police from the corporate sector authority, think the Empire but much smaller in scope, arrive at their table to inform Han that the Millennium Falcon will not be able to fly through their space without proper clearance in the form of a waiver. On top of that, their ship's been impounded. Wah, wah, wah. What's a smuggler to do? Well, break it out of impoundment, of course. After getting the Falcon out, Han decides to go see a man named Doc, an outlaw technician, in order to see if something can be done about the waiver, as well as get some repairs. Upon arriving, they instead find Doc's daughter, Jessa, who advises them that Doc disappeared a while ago, possibly being kidnapped. She makes a proposition for Han to go and find out what happened to Doc, as well as pick up some individuals from a planet called Oron 3. A planet that the book makes a point to tell you is primarily agricultural, despite having some of the authority's data centers on it. Han reluctantly agrees to help in return for the waiver as well as repairs and upgrades. In order for the Falcon to go unnoticed by the data centers, it needs to be camouflaged, but before this process can even be completed, Han and the group get attacked by Authority starfighters. What's worse, with the Falcon no longer usable until the work is completed, Han and the gang have to pilot some old headhunter ships to fend them off. It doesn't go well. Despite winning the fight, technically, they lost 3 people and sustained damage to the base itself. I really enjoyed Han's narration throughout this scene, as it did a good job of painting the picture of just how frustrating it was to try to fly another ship in such a life-threatening situation. It's like when someone asks you to drive their car for them, and you've never done it before, and it's real, I don't know, that's always been really scary to me personally, so I could relate to Han here. After getting the camouflage finished up, Han is joined by 2 droids, Bollux and Blue Max. Bollux is basically an outdated labor droid whose memory was never wiped, giving him a bit of a personality. He has a compartment in his chest for Blue Max to fit inside. Blue Max is what's known as a slicer droid, capable of hacking computer systems, which would be his main function in this mission as well. So they go to Oron 3 and meet Reckon, a man leading a group in search of missing people, who just happened to disappear after openly criticizing the Authority. I wonder why. That must be a coincidence. Sure, it's a coincidence. They meet the rest of Reckon's group and finally get the waiver for the Falcon. Reckon also reveals to Han the real reason he asked Jessa to recruit him. Reckon believes there's a traitor in their midst. Dun dun dun! We also come to find that Reckon's nephew was among the missing people. Besides Torm, the 2 characters in Reckon's group, Atuare and Paka, are part of a group called Triani, a feline-like species. They also lost someone, Atuare's husband and consequently Paka's father, and become much more important characters in the later half of the book. From this point on, we start getting all kinds of twists, like Torm assassinating Reckon, finding out that Star's End is the name of the prison on Midas 7, Chewie getting kidnapped, Han and the group sneaking onto the prison, posing as a bunch of performers in order to find and free the prisoners. It just goes on and on. Things really escalate in the book's last quarter or so, Bollux having a gladiator-style battle with a literal battle droid, while Han and Blue Max are working to find the prisoner's location, for example. This may have been a short story, as are all 3 of Brian Daley's Han Solo novels, but that didn't make this story any less fun or engaging. While I don't have many negatives to think of here personally, I could see some people not getting behind this book, or trilogy of stories in general, for a few reasons. The plot in the first half of the story is not nearly as memorable as the later half, for example, but I think that dislike will usually have more to do with the time period that these came out during, and not really having an understanding of the material that had come out up to this point, which of course wasn't very much. There was also some serious fat shaming going on with Vice President Herkin's wife, which kept coming up out of nowhere. It felt really unnecessary, on top of Herkin himself being an almost cartoonishly evil villain character. These things didn't ruin the story for me or anything, but they definitely took me out of it for just a bit. One of the main reasons these three books are so highly praised is because they're straight up fun. No, we don't learn much about Han's past, and there's nothing really universe-altering about it, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be. Keep in mind, once again, that Daley only had the material in A New Hope to go by. Even Han's habit of boasting about how he only looks out for himself, despite eventually doing a complete 180 in the end and helping everyone around him, is reflected here. Heck, Daley even managed to add a quote about shooting first. This was a pulp space novel written by someone who ultimately understood Han's character and did the best he could to make a series of books fitting to that character's traits. On that front, I believe it was a success, and holds up surprisingly well if you can get past some of the awkward and maybe dated dialogue. After being slightly disappointed with Splinter of the Mind's Eye, I was very happy to see something like this come along, and I couldn't wait to see what Brian Daley would come up with next. So, have you ever read this story before? What did you think of it? What were your favorite stories tying into Han Solo, other characters of the Star Wars universe? Feel free to let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time.